It's been almost a decade since a new Dragon Quest game was released in North America, and longer still since a grand-scale console-quality Dragon Quest game has come to the West. Now, Dragon Quest XI, Echoes of an Elusive Age, has arrived on the PlayStation 4 and PC to slake the thirst of its unyielding fanbase. But with so much pressure on its shoulders, does Dragon Quest XI stand tall, or does it crumble beneath the weight of its predecessors? This review and the related footage is based on a physical retail copy of the game for the PlayStation 4.
You're safe now, little fellow.
I wasn't sure what to make of Dragon Quest XI during my opening impressions of the game. The story was interesting, the gameplay was solid, the music was functional if unremarkable. And yet, I wasn't hooked. I wasn't as immediately enthralled with the game the way I was with, say, Dragon Quest VII, my favorite game in the series. And yet I marched on, enjoying each moment as it came, discovering secrets seemingly at will, and reading endless dialogues about the history of Erdrea and its diverse populace. And then, about 50 hours into the game, it hit me. Dragon Quest XI is amazing. While that sounds vaguely similar to the criticisms levied against the likes of lesser JRPGs such as Final Fantasy XIII or Suikoden 4, it absolutely is not. Where those games were mediocre and or trudging through the initial dozen-plus hours of story and gameplay, Dragon Quest XI is more methodical, more meticulous than those games in its opening hours. The plot starts off slowly, as with most Dragon Quest games. Some players will likely find the early moments to be too lackadaisical, but the story accelerates quickly, and once it begins ramping up, it never eases off the gas, save for a few momentary reprieves so that players can collect their thoughts and reflect upon their adventures thus far. Everything you do during the opening moments of the game is to set up things that will happen later on in the story, and each story beat is more entertaining and more impactful than the previous beat, culminating in a journey as memorable and fantastic as almost any JRPG. The strength of Dragon Quest XI's story isn't in its innovation. Indeed, the narrative finds its comfort zone along the beaten path, taking well-established trends and cliches and polishing them beyond measure. However, there are times when the game subverts expectations to maximum effect, but I'll let you discover those moments organically, as they're my favorite parts of the entire game. Dragon Quest XI's gameplay is much like its story in the sense that what was old is now new again. Combat is your classic turn-based affair, and longtime fans of Dragon Quest as well as fans of classic JRPGs at large will find themselves right at home. Monsters all appear on the overworld, so there are no random encounters on foot. A visible and audible effect indicates whether monsters have seen you, and weaker monsters will flee from you so you never have to waste time fighting more insignificant foes on your journey. Riding your horse is a faster mode of travel, and when galloping, your horse will bowl over most enemies in the overworld, so it's a good way to get from place to place whenever you're backtracking. I rarely used my horse, however, as sprinting around is quick enough, and I enjoyed facing enemies in combat. Alongside your standard attack and magic spells, each character has skills. Skills have a variety of effects, from dealing additional damage towards specific monster archetypes to buffing allies. Skills, spells, and even additional stat boosts are all earned by leveling up to gain skill points and then using skill points in the character builder. The character builder is akin to the license board seen in Final Fantasy XII, and each character has his or her own special board, giving each party member unique strengths and weaknesses. While you can evenly distribute points around the board, I found it was much better to focus on a single skill type and fill out that section as much as possible before dabbling with the other spaces on the board. One of the new innovations in Dragon Quest XI is the pep-up effect. Characters will occasionally become pepped up during combat and earn temporary stat boosts so long as they are pepped up. These effects last in between battles, so if you get pepped up at the end of a fight, don't worry. The next time you engage in combat, you will enter with pep up already in effect. When specific combinations of characters are pepped up, they will be able to perform various pep skills. Much like standard skills, pep skills have a multitude of effects, from restoring HP and MP to attacking all enemies on the field. Be aware, however, that using a pep skill will end a character's pep up status. I recommend using pep skills towards the end of a pep up status, indicated by the blinking aura surrounding the character's icon. Enemies are also able to get pepped up and will gain all of these benefits in turn. This adds an additional layer of challenge and strategy to the game, which will keep you on your toes. One feature carried over from Dragon Quest X is the ability to move freely about the battle arena. This is merely a visual feature, however, as standing far apart in the arena yields no in-game benefits. Luckily, this can be turned off by going into system settings and changing the battle mode to classic camera. Overall, Dragon Quest XI still has the tried and true gameplay seen in Dragon Quest games from years prior, and the new additions make the gameplay even more enjoyable. Visually, the game is stunning. Dragon Quest XI is Square-Enix's first full game built within Unreal Engine 4, and the results are remarkable. The lighting effects are gorgeous, environments are both vast and richly detailed, and everything is beautifully animated. The cell shading effect, though less exaggerated than in Dragon Quest VIII, is just present enough to give everything a visual flair, creating a very lovely picture when displayed in tandem with environmental effects. And the art still has that distinct Akira Toriyama style to it, which makes the graphics even more of a treat to the eyes. On standard model PlayStation 4 systems, Dragon Quest XI runs at 900p, which is standard for most games running on Unreal 4. PS4 Pro systems, however, use checkerboard rendering to put Dragon Quest XI at a resolution of 3072 by 1728, which is then upscaled to 2160p. This combination of checkerboarding and upscaling results in a very crisp and beautiful image, but also renders some slight and unavoidable motion blurring in the process. This shouldn't be a huge issue given just how much better the game looks on the PS4 Pro, but certain players may find this to be problematic. The frame rate on any model PS4 is locked at 30 FPS. On PC, however, Dragon Quest XI offers up to a 1080p resolution and a 60 FPS frame rate. Dedicated players can tinker with the game files, however, and raise the resolution and frame rate beyond that with some simple tweaks. All in all, despite not pushing any technical boundaries, Dragon Quest XI is a joy to the visual medium on any platform. The weakest part of the game by far is the audio. Unlike the original Japanese release, which did not feature any voice acting whatsoever, Dragon Quest XI's Western release features full English voice acting for all prominent story-driven scenes. The player character is a silent protagonist, save for a few nondescript grunts, groans, and other related effort noises, which makes the remaining cast's performance all the more important. There are some things that the game's voice work does incredibly well. Like past Dragon Quest titles, each region features distinctly different dialects, accents, and speech patterns, and the voiceovers do a generally great job of capturing and expressing these different cultures' modes of speech. However, the voice acting as a whole is pretty spotty to say the least, especially compared to other Square-Enix properties like the Final Fantasy series. Some performances bring a colorful charm to Erdrea, where others sound rather dry and understated. There is an option to turn the voiceover volume down or even off, but the only spoken language option presently available is English. There is currently no way to change the game's language audio to Japanese, which many will undoubtedly find disappointing. In addition to the voice acting, Dragon Quest XI's in-game score is not fully orchestrated. Instead, all the music present during gameplay is a MIDI-synthesized soundtrack. This is due to composer Koichi Sugiyama's belief that putting a fully orchestrated soundtrack in the games will detract from his live orchestral performances of the Dragon Quest series' iconic score. I personally thought the MIDI soundtrack was passable, but only barely. The music composition was good, but the richness of the composition was almost completely lost in the MIDI sound. Players that are not fond of MIDI music will find the soundtrack to be overwhelming, perhaps even suffocating. There are some fixes to these audio problems, however, both currently and coming soon. Presently, PC players can thankfully install a mod that replaces the MIDI soundtrack with the orchestrated versions of every song. Meanwhile, any console players still holding out on Dragon Quest XI can simply wait and buy the Nintendo Switch Definitive Edition releasing later this year that will feature both a fully orchestrated soundtrack and English and Japanese voice acting options, along with other added content. However, PS4 players will currently have no such luck, meaning if you want the game right now and you don't want it on PC, you'll be forced to listen to MIDI music with English-only voice acting. Ultimately, the current audio situation is the most disappointing aspect of the entire game. For the full $60 price tag, Dragon Quest XI is both an incredible game and an incredible value. Despite the lackluster music and fluctuating voiceover quality, the game is more than redeemed by everything else present in the package. The power of Dragon Quest XI is twofold. First, its world building is immaculate. From the diversity of each location's citizens and their respective ways of life, to the intricate written history of the world and the people within it, Erdrea is a beautifully fulfilling place in which to adventure. And second, the gameplay of Dragon Quest XI is tried and true, as dependable today as it was over 10 years ago, yet still featuring a few new quirks and details that make it as fun as ever. The best way I can word it is this. Dragon Quest XI is to the Dragon Quest series what Final Fantasy IX was to the Final Fantasy series. It's a celebration of everything that made the series great for the past 33 years, and a love letter to classic JRPGs of generations past. While Dragon Quest XI won't make any non-JRPG fans change their minds about the genre, longtime Dragon Quest fans will love Dragon Quest XI, and newcomers to the series will find plenty to enjoy as well. Dragon Quest XI, Echoes of an Elusive Age, earns a 9.2 out of 10. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe and click the bell icon to stay up to date on all my new content. As for the links on screen, last month I reviewed Kingdom Hearts 3, and the month before was Tales of Vesperia Definitive Edition, so check those out too. No spoilers in either of those videos as well. Thanks again, see you next time.